Straw Hut Media.
I did just finish watching the doc.
Oh, cool, fantastic.
Pretty good, isn't it?
I loved it. I think that we should talk about that, and then, the process, how it got started.
Once upon a time. I'll start with once upon a time.
Yeah.
Well, once upon a time, I was approached by this young man, and I think he asked me to do a small role in a film that he was producing.
Correct.
Yeah, and he came out to my house, and we shot something, and you don't always get lucky enough to work with somebody that you end up working with again. In a perfect world, that happens. But I just knew that he was smart, and I appreciated his understanding of motion picture things. Then he came up with the idea of the documentary, and I had been approached by other people, but I never wanted to do it because I didn't trust them. And he had a trustability. That's all I can say.
Well, let's start with the beginning. Yes, I met Michael the first time. We hired Michael. The budget was limited, so we could only afford him for a day. Half a day, and was kind enough to give us a little more than that. So we had a great shoot. And during the filming, we spent a lot of time. It's a low budget film, so there's not that much. There's a lot of downtime, setting
Whatever
things up.
happened to that thing?
It's coming out.
I'm just kidding.
By the way, it's coming out. Yeah, it took a while. It's called Cash Collectors, and it's gonna come out this year. But again, we spoke, and somehow we kind of liked the same things. We start talking about filmmaking and how great older movies were done, and how great Steve McQueen, which is one of my favorite actors, and Robert Mitchum, and we're talking about Reservoir Dogs and the stories about the here, and all those information started like processing. I was processing them. I say, wow, Michael Madsen not only is a great actor, but he has a lot of stories that would be great to put together into a documentary. And I always wanted to do docs too. It's not like, I'm a filmmaker. I like to do films, but documentaries are a bit different. You can put more of your time in it and really craft them more precisely to your abilities. And I asked Michael, hey, would you be interested in doing that? And sure enough, he wasn't really interested. He was, but and then we discussed over the phone. And
I didn't know what you were up to, and the whole thing started to really spook me out. But then you have to chase your ego out of the equation. It's like, oh, they're gonna make this thing about me. And I didn't feel good about that.
First of all, you said no right away?
I didn't. I felt very uncomfortable about it. I wasn't sure exactly what it was. And I became afraid that it might be some sort of cartoon or some sort of whitewashed thing. Because a lot of documentaries are not very good. And then a lot of them are done after the person has passed away. And then they can basically say whatever they want about this person. Or they have some chum or some family member. Well, the truth is, he drove off a cliff when he was 14, or some story that can never be corroborated. Then when I mentioned that to him, I said, listen, we have to put the good things and the bad things and the ugly things, and the whole story's got to be there. And then he knew what I meant.
Yeah, we started pretty much in that pace and said, listen, let's get started at least with the core, and and we started discussing, and the good thing about it, we came into an agreement right away. It works. If you have an agreement right away, you already have a good foundation to do something good. I was afraid, because he's a movie star of a certain stature, that he would accept or not accept certain things, but I was surprised that it says, no, we're gonna put everything on the table if we do this. And I was very happy, because that's what a documentary should be.
It must have been a very impactful shoot on this feature film if you were then somehow able to manage to convince this man who said no many times to this documentary. I just don't understand what happened.
Well, because you meet people in your life every day. You meet people that you never want to see again. You can tell somebody in 5 minutes whether you trust them or not. I mean, at least I can. I'm cursed with that ability. I mean, it's what I do for a living. And so I became very aware of human behavior, even when I was a little kid. I was always the new kid on the block, and I was always the new guy. And I got very wary of people, and, they're just a thing way before I knew that I could make a living at understanding stuff like that. And so I became a quick study of a lot of people. And he was, to me, a quick study. I got it right off the bat. He's a good-natured man. And he knows what he's doing with cinema. And I could just tell a passion there that is very obvious. And he's super humble about everything. He's not a, hey, fucking look at me kind of guy. He's just not like that. And a lot of people in his position, they are commanders. They're dictators. They're just, it's at my fucking way or the highway. Forget you, man, But he's so open to suggestion. And, I must say, honestly, I think that there were times when I could have been a lot more cooperative than I was, because I tended to disappear for a while, and I had a movie to do or some other goddamn thing to go do. And, but he never stopped waiting for me to suddenly reappear. And I was also drinking an awful lot during those days. I mean, I was a bad, bad boy. I didn't have the patience or the wherewithal to be respectful for what we were actually doing. But as things went on and more people came into the equation, at his behest and his idea, to have my mom, my sister, then my mom comes up with black and white footage of a Super 8 Kodak camera my dad shot when I was a little boy. I didn't even know it existed, okay? So you see what I'm getting at? It's just, It became a collaborative effort.
Yeah, definitely a huge collaboration. And we built trust between each other. And regarding him disappearing, I wouldn't call it disappearing, he's got jobs to do, and maybe also the other things too, but that was the deal of the documentary, and that was the discipline of it. I knew that this would take some time to complete because of that, but on the other hand, it was worth waiting the time, because not every day you have the opportunity to have interviews with the people that I was honored to interview. It's not every day, and that was the discipline of it, and I knew it. And what really made me excited to continue was every time that he would come back after a film or his own thing, he would call me right away. Hey, Dominique, sorry I was out, but hey, let's get back at it. Let's and he gives me the enthusiasm to continue. And back and forth, that's what kept this thing. Sometimes I would call him and say, Michael, can we redo this thing really quick? And I would expect somebody else to say, oh man, we did it 3 times already. But no, Dominic, if you don't like it, I'm in. Come in to Malibu or let's meet somewhere. I mean, it was really a strong collaboration, absolutely.
How did you know what to throw in this and and where to start?
I have to claim total disenfranchised. I had no idea of the structure, and I knew that he did. And I was just going to keep throwing stuff out and just whatever. But then when a lot of people came along, they were very unexpectedly, Robert Forster, for gosh sake, and, even Daryl Hannah and everybody. I could name every single person in there that just came forward voluntarily to want to be a part of it. It was very humbling to me. I mean, we got some great folks in there. Good Lord. I was very surprised by how enthusiastic the people were that did come in. Because nobody was on a payday. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
They did it because they wanted to be a part of it. I mean, like Chuck Zito, for God's sake. The guy's president of the Hells Angels. I mean, me and Michael rode together, a couple times. Well, Chuck, I mean, thanks for, we did it.
Yeah.
And Paul Servino is playing the piano. And
that was awesome.
Paul.
That was awesome, yeah.
I did a picture with Paul in Acapulco. And he is very, very funny man. Very interesting fellow. Everybody, the more people like that came in, the more the structure of itself started to form itself, right,
yes. Dom? Yeah, what happened was the richness of the material actually got the editing process a little bit in difficulty. I actually cut this thing probably 7 times, even 8 times. Well, the first 3 you don't really count because they're kind of offlines. But the richness of the material, and when you have so much rich material, you try to use everything, and then it becomes complicated. And me and my editor, I had 2 editors with me on the team, and one of them was a very young guy. I used him mostly for the offline stuff, but I had the luxury of having a really great editor that edited Star Wars 4 back in the days. And he sat down with me, we start talking, and he said, listen, man, this is 5 documentaries you have. You have material to do 5 documentaries. You're going to have to make a choice. And use your instinct, make it 90 minutes, use the best, and go for it. And then that's how we did. And we started editing. And then I also didn't want to start by putting right away his best work. People really start, let's start with Reservoir Dog and a year. I disagreed with that because I wanted to show him his Chicago life, his youth, everything. I wanted to show that first. It's a risk because you could lose your audience by the time you get to let's call it the good stuff. So it was kind of a gamble, but it was such a rich material from the mother. Elaine was so great. I mean, she brought in so much material that I analyzed and I said, wow. And we put that Chicago segment together. Virginia completed it. And
she sure did.
And then he had the issue in Arizona. We had to reshoot it because we don't have a young Michael. So we had to get 2 guys, him and his pal, that looks kind of the same. And we cartooned the whole segment that way, And they were agreed. It was fun to do because, I didn't want to do a reenactment like the 60-minute show. I was trying to do something a little bit more artsy. But piece by piece, and then he always was watching the cut and say, Dominique, I think this is the right path.
Something like that could have blown it if you hadn't done that right. Because all that animated, reenacted stuff is really good, though.
Yes.
We something like that could ruin a documentary.
Yeah, that was, we did that in a team. Todd Cosley also is a producer here. We did it in Arizona. We did that stuff there. That was part of the job that he did there with us.
You remember that race car stuff we did?
We did the race.
In Fontana.
Right? We did the race car. We didn't use. We have so much footage.
We had that for a trailer.
Yeah, we had that for the trailer. Yeah. There's like multiple trailers that came out. But again, this is what.
A Formula One car.
We have
Mario Andretti.
Well.
I got Mario Andretti driving around
with the credit, and it didn't
200
work.
miles an hour.
Yeah, it didn't work.
We gotta put that.
But that's the thing. This is the beauty of filmmaking. This is the beauty of filmmaking.
It was so stupid.
You try stuff.
It was so stupid.
You have to try. But when it doesn't work, don't push it. Okay, you have Mario Andretti. You're on the Fontana track. This is all good, but it's not working. Get rid of it.
I'm all in the car.
And the credit. I have it. And the credit rolling under, and the car
I wanted
keeps.
to use it as the promo for the doc. Man.
Yeah, and at the end.
Michael in a race car.
Yeah, so it didn't work. So there's a lot of stuff that didn't work that we had to trash.
Thank God.
But. At the end of the day, this is what filmmaking is about, man. Don't be scared of trying. But if it doesn't work, you gotta get rid of it. It doesn't matter what's in the piece. If it doesn't work, you gotta get rid of it, and we did.
There's a picture of me and Mario at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I got to sit with Mario after the driving, and we actually had a conversation, me and him together. And I thought that was the coolest thing to be. Not only being in the car, of course, but then being with him to just chat about stuff. I thought, wow, what a privilege. How many people get to meet Mario Andretti? Wow. There was a lot of stuff like that. The footage my dad took when I was a little boy just broke my heart a couple times. It was amazingly wonderful to see stuff like that. Did my mom just suddenly tell you she had that?
Yeah. She just told me, hey, why don't you come over at the condo in West Hollywood? And we sat down, and first, before I even look at the material, I introduced myself and said, I'm going to do the documentary about your son. And, we spoke, and then I say, oh, let me get back. Give me a second. I'm going to go to the closet. And she comes back. I was expecting 5 pictures, and man, she had everything documented, Super 8 with what it was, the day, and picture. There are like 2,000 pictures, Michael. I'm not kidding. I had to search. I had to select 50 with her. I said, listen, I want to do this with you because this is your son. I'm going to pick the pictures. They might not be right or wrong, but if you help me and you guide me to the best one, and she pulled out the one for the Boy Scout. She pulls out the one for this, the car you wrecked, the Arizona, everything came up. And then the Super 8, I didn't see because it was rolled, so I had to transfer it. And I started looking at this. I said, oh my God, this is crazy. And the sister, Virginia, filming him, pointing at the engine of the car you built, because he builds cars like Chuck Zito. He's a car guy. And it was fantastic. And honestly, when I saw that footage, I said, okay, you know what? I'm starting the documentary early with that material. We all know who he is. We all know Reservoir Dog. We all know all that, but we don't know that part. So let's start with that.
I didn't want to be an actor, man. Okay. I wanted to be Richard Petty.
Yeah, well, that's what I think is so fascinating. And I think that that's why it works so well, setting it up with that and starting basically at the beginning is because we know where it's going to go. We know it's going to at least get to the parts we love and Michael from, so it's like, we know, so you can easily do that. And it works so well. The thing I found the most fascinating was hearing how you started. Hearing this audition, and then getting pulled into another one. And
Chip, yeah. My buddy Chip, whatever happened to him, I don't know. He bugged me forever to go in with him to an audition. And yeah, because we rode the L train together to paramedic school, which I was doing to make my father happy. And I never finished that class, by the way. I broke my wrist in a baseball game. And I didn't want to go to school with a cast on my arm. And I hated that cast so much. I once jumped in a swimming pool at a party with the cast on because I was trying to disintegrate it. And what happens when you do that is the whole thing, it turns into a massive sponge and it starts to stink, right? And I ended up hacking it off with a knife just to get it off my arm. Well, that was the end of my paramedics training.
Well, that meant that you were not, nothing.
I wasn't meant to be.
Let's put it this way, it's a very honor to be a paramedic because it's a great job and or like firemen and all that. Maybe it wasn't for you. So.
I went into it voluntarily.
Yeah.
I thought I would be good at it.
Yeah.
I wanted to save people and help people, and I respected my father because he was a fireman, and I wanted to show my respect, and I thought it would be good. He had an ambulance attendant, and I had a savvy for that, and I thought I could be good Johnny on the spot in emergency situations. And, because the funny thing about emergency situation is a lot of people panic, right? Oh my God. And the one who's calm in the middle of stuff like that is usually the one you hope there's someone around who's calm, Craziness always makes me calm, and I don't really understand why, but.
Craziness makes you calm?
Yeah. I just don't think it's wise to approach it in any other way.
Yeah. I think I have a similar mentality about it.
No, you probably do.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay. I want to talk about some of the things that you weren't able to include in this. And, even after it's made, I feel like there's things that have happened that you would have included,
Yeah.
So let's first start with some things that you did that you wanted to include.
Well, the most important part for me in terms of his career, and I'm not saying that he hasn't worked with other directors because there's been some great directors that he worked with. For me, for his career only, the most important part was to have Quentin, Mr. Tarantino, to have it present in a documentary. Because, for me as a filmmaker, I wanted to understand how the two of them works together. I just needed to know that. What I discovered is, and again, this is coming from my own analysis, I believe, and again, I could be wrong here, but I believe Michael is at his best when he has a director that trusts Michael's instincts. And when they trust each other.
I just love the hat story. And
So the
You
hat,
can't make up something like that, man.
the hat story is one thing, but what you have, I mean, not teaching anything to anybody here, but when you're on a set and you have a script that's completely lined up, parked and all that, made for that moment, there's not that many directors and producers that's gonna try to change something, because it's already accounted for, the day, the hour it starts, the hour the movie finishes. We got to stick to the lines and all that. And it's complicated. Certain actor, never meet that person. But for example, Dustin Hoffman, for example, for me, is a professional in that thing. Give me the lines, buy the book, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it's over with. Let's go home. I felt with Michael, it's different. And when I met Quentin, Mr. Tarantino, I felt that also he has that kind of malleable. Let's, yeah, Michael, you want to do it this way? Let's see where it goes. This for me is the filmmaking that was done in the 70s. I grew up on sets in Italy. I saw it with my own eyes in Cinecittà. You know, I saw that thing. I saw Sergio Leone calling extras, say, oh, hey, vieni qua, I mean, come here. You go here. Oh, let's try this way. Let's try. They were doing it on the set. And I felt like with Michael and I call him Quentin, Mr. Tarantino. I felt that I was back in that time. And that's why the stuff works with him. And that's why those scenes are fantastic.
You've been on, I think you said, at least in the doc, 160 movies or something like that. Would you feel the same way about Quentin?
I think that some of the best stuff, obviously, I've ever done was with him. At least it opened me up as an actor, but it also spoiled me in a lot of ways, because it's not like he would come in and say, okay, Michael, go do whatever you want. It wasn't really like that. It was more as if I felt like if he gave me that part, then he must figure that I can do it. And so then I would just do my interpretation of it, of what I thought it was supposed to be. And if he let me go and didn't cut me off, I figured I was doing something right. And if I didn't, he'd say, no, Michael, no. Okay, then I would do it a different way. And I wasn't, he just gave me permission.
Reservoir Dogs was the first thing you guys did together.
Yeah.
Did you know him before that?
They actually cast me in that movie before I even met him.
Okay.
I was at a big agency and they sent me the script and I read it. I thought it was really fantastic.
Because in the doc, you guys say that it was basically, the script just said, like, what is it for that moment? That dance, maniacally dance. Yeah. So tell me about how that.
It said Mr. Blonde maniacally dances around the manacled cop. And that stuck in my memory, in my mind, because I remember reading it from the page. Oh, what in the name of God is that? Maniacally dancing around. Meanwhile, my people at that time were telling me not to do the movie. They said, Michael, there's nobody in it, and they don't have any money. And this guy, Quentin, no one's ever heard of him. This is his first movie. Listen, if you do that and it blunders down, you're going to ruin your life, because no one's ever going to hire you again. You might be lucky, Michael, but that guy, Quentin, he's never going to get another shot. You don't want to be a part of that fucking train wreck, okay? And it was one of the best things I had ever read at that point. I thought it was really interesting. These guys named after colors and all that. But I still hesitated. I really was confused. And when can I meet this guy? No. You're being offered flat out the role of Mr. Blonde. Will you do it or not? I didn't know what to say. And then I heard Harvey Keitel is going to be Mr. White. And that changed everything for me, right? I said, well, how bad can it be with him? Because I had done Thelma and Louise with him. And we already knew each other. And I thought, wow, that's interesting as hell. And besides, Harvey's the best gangster cat, man. In those movies, you can't get better than Harvey back then in those days. And that gave me, okay, thank God. I mean, but I didn't, honestly, like I said, I didn't know what to do. And up to that point, because we rehearsed for a week before we started shooting. And every time it got to that point of the script, I kept saying, what the fuck am I going to do? And he would say, Michael, we'll just do it on the day. Don't worry. And I felt so relieved. Oh, great. I don't have to figure that out.
The first time you did it, were you rolling or was it? Yeah. And he liked it immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. I took a big shot in the dark because, Tim Roth is laying there in the blood and I have to walk over to him and look at him. So I picked up his jacket and I looked at him and stuff. I was trying to think, what in the hell am I going to do? Because he rolled on it. All I knew was I had the distance between Tim and the table where the radio was. And I had a gun. And I had the razor in my boot. I inevitably had to get to that. And I said, so this is all my room. He goes, yeah, you're from here to there. Could do it. But it had different music that he was going to use because he didn't have the rights for Stuck in the Middle at that point. And he said, in case I do get those rights, would you sing to the song? And I said, wow, yeah, well. And okay, I wanted him to get the rights that he wanted, right? Because he's like a father figure all of a sudden. I want him to get that song, so I'm going to sing to the damn thing. But I only did that once in case he didn't end up. He had a take of me not singing it. But the first time, right out of the box, was filmed, and that's the one that's in the movie.
and just to add something to this, it just shows the brilliance of a brilliant director and a great actor, brilliant actor, when they cooperate together and they're on the same pace. And like in the documentary, Quentin says, we'll get the dance. No, Michael said, well, I want to do the dance at the moment when we have to film because I don't know what I'm going to do. A different director might have said, no, wait a second, Michael. I need to know where you stop. I need to know where you start. I need to know this. I need to put my camera here. I need to put my camera there. I need to put the lights. Well, Quentin's brilliance is, all right, I'll trust him. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, look what happened. The balls of him to let me do that, because
you can't. Those moments cannot. I don't think you can imagine and make this moment on paper. This is all instinct. Michael decided to dance this way because that's what he felt that was right, and there's nothing you can do. You could have put 10 actors doing that scene. I'll put money on the table. That scene wouldn't work. That scene only worked because Michael did it. And that's an iconic scene forever now in filmmaking.
If I would have had to practice that or rehearse that, it never would have worked out.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I would have been really awkward and stupid.
And he knew it.
And he knew it and just let me alone. But if I think back on it now, of course,
it's a one-shot deal.
The fact that he let me step in front of his camera.
Yeah.
And turned it fucking on.
I think that you're right, that it is about that. There's some kind of, I don't know, some kind of relationship that's unspoken.
I was waiting for him to scream cut at me, honestly.
Yeah.
Halfway, right in the beginning, I said, I started turning around. I was expecting to hear, cut. Michael, what are you doing? And I would have had to figure something else out. Oh, no. But because he didn't cut, I just kept doing it. And it seemed to, even afterwards, he never said anything to me about it. And so I was really kind of confused. Wow, man, I wonder if that was all right. And is that going to be in the movie? I said, oh, man, I look like an idiot,
What did he say right after you shot it?
Do it again. Want me to do it again, but without singing the words of the song. But then I knew I already did it the first time. So I just did the same thing over again.
But he only wanted you to do it again without singing the words of the song in case of the rights.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you right now, it was going to be Barroom Blitz by the Blasters.
Oh yeah.
And he wanted Stuck in the Middle, and thank God he got it. It would have worked either way, but that's his genius. He's a wonderful genius about music stuff.
Yes. I think the reason I brought up the hat story is because I do feel like it's a very similar story in terms of how you guys work together, even though it started as like a little battle over the hat. In a weird way, it is it's like us loving weird friendship, and I'd love to hear more about it.
Well, the hat is really probably the funniest thing, because I was actually there when I filmed the interview, and Quentin imitating Michael and Michael imitating Quentin. I'm just like, it was the best. And then, but Quentin doing the exact same move, because Michael probably got not upset. I don't know. I wasn't there during that shoot, but when he took his hat off and he said, "I'm gonna kill this guy because and this and that." Anyway, it was really hilarious. But the hat scene, if it wasn't for Michael and also Todd, I believe, I wasn't planning on putting the hat scene, because mostly Michael he told me put it back, because I thought the hat segment was more a DVD kind of, after, when you do a movie and you show the DVD special features, I thought the hat scene was more toward that than a documentary. So I was hesitant putting in it, but people were laughing so hard. Yeah. So and I decided not to put it in, and he said, "No, you got to put it in." And I told him, "Michael, but this is not part of a doc. It's part of the behind the scene of a DVD." And Michael said, "I don't care. Put the hat scene back."
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
It just occurred to me. If Quentin hadn't been part of telling the hat story, I don't think it would have been as effective in the doc.
No, not at all. No, Quentin.
Because I can't tell that story.
Yeah.
You can't tell anybody that story
you needed,
without knowing the whole thing of it. Right?
Yes, and that's the reason why we re-edited pretty much the whole doc after we had the honor to have Quentin. I should say Mr. Tarantino. I'm using Quentin. I hope it's not.
I think it's okay at this point.
Okay, it's okay at this point. I say without Quentin interview, I'll be honest, the documentary, I believe, would have still been great. But with Quentin, it elevated it even better.
I loved watching him in the damn thing.
And the beauty of it is you get the real answer for the holes that I had in the timeline. I say, okay, I don't have this side, so I'm gonna have to recreate it somehow. But when I spent 2 hours at his place, I came back with that footage. I said, wow, the documentary is gonna be great now, because I have his side and everything, not only the hat and the Reservoir Dog and the way Michael works and on his own rhythm, and he takes his dialogue and change it around to run into his own rhythm. All that was great because it came from him directly.
It's a true story, okay? And I never even realized his emotional part of the story until I saw the documentary with him in it talking about it.
Yeah.
And he admitted that he did it to me on purpose, right?
The funny thing is, the funny thing that's crazy is we were planning on finishing the doc without Quentin, because, he's a busy man. He's doing much bigger project than a little documentary. So I say, hey, we tried. And then one day I receive a text from Mayra, a great lady that's Miss Tarantino assistant. And I thought it was Michael throwing a joke at me. So I get the text. It was like early in the morning. And I call Michael and say, Michael, come on, man. You know how excited I would be if we have Quentin. I know he's not going to do it. Why you send me this text? And Michael goes, what are you talking about? I'm busy. I'm preparing a role right now. I'm busy. What do you want? Like it was kind of a different... So I got this text about, going and do the interview today. And he goes, well, then just do it then. And he hung up on me. So I text Mayra, I say, how much time do I have to get there? I say, well, if you can be there by 6 p.m., it'll be great. It was 11 in the morning in LA, yeah. And so I said, all right, first of all, I'm going to a place that not that many people needs to know about, and I cannot tell who the person is, because once you start telling something, suddenly 2 hours later in all the social medias, oh yeah, I'm going there to do this interview. So I kept it quiet. I found a friend of mine, kind of not off the street, but I knew him enough to trust him. I say, hey, I need you for 2 hours tonight. I'll pay you. Bring a camera, bring sound. I'll bring my 2 light panel. I'll bring my black magic. Let's go to venue. Yeah, sure, let's go. And when we got there, I said, we're going to Mr. Tarantino house. So there's two rules. First of all, we only here for an interview. I don't want to see any demands of selfies and stuff like that. We do the interview and then we leave. And he said, yeah, absolutely. And we did it.
He didn't want to do it the first time. I asked him 2 or 3 times during the 2 years. And he just kept saying, Michael, I don't do stuff like that. I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have any part of that. You guys go ahead. You do what you're going to do, Michael. You'll be all right. And I said, well, I pretty much satisfied myself with knowing that, well, he's not going to do it. And for some bizarre, unknown reason that I still don't know, he suddenly called me out of the freaking blue and said, are you guys still doing that documentary? And I go, yeah. And he goes, oh, who is that guy? So he's Dominique, he's my good friend. Oh, so. He goes, well, what's he doing now? And I go, well, he's around. He goes, oh, well, send him over. I'm like, send him over? He goes, yeah, no, I'll do it. I'd like to do it. I said, holy Jesus.
Yeah, it was.
When is that going to happen? Oh, right now. Holy shit, man. And I called him, or he called me. I don't remember, but I said he was going to do it. And
I would have gone there with a cell phone. I didn't care, whatever I had. So.
Did you even have questions prepared?
Yeah, I already had my question a long time ago, so I had to pull them out. But the questions were very simple and easy. And he also added more to the questions because he's a brilliant filmmaker. He understands what I'm trying to do. From his side, he understood what I'm trying to assemble. So he was giving me stuff that I even have asked for, but because of his brilliance, you see, when you're brilliant, the other side, what the other side is requiring. And that's what he did. He gave me, I thought I was going to be there for like 20, 30 minutes. I was there for 2 hours. And we had one of the best, probably the best interview of the whole thing.
I actually never saw him that animated or that pleased with what he was saying before that.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he's been in interviews, let's face it, all over the place. I've never seen him that openly cheerful about what he was talking about. It was fascinating. And he let me off the hook about so many things.
Yeah.
He let me off the hook about Pulp Fiction, and he explained that I was doing Wyatt Earp. And, for years, there's nobody who could answer that question except him.
I didn't even know that was going to be that was written for you. I didn't know.
It was. Yeah, it was. But if it had been up to Harvey Weinstein, in the end, I'm not so sure that it would have happened anyway. Harvey was not very pleased with me. Me and him never got along, actually.
Do you know why?
No, I don't know why. I wish I knew why. If I knew why, I don't even know how I would talk about it. He was just a distant kind of guy. He never really embraced my existence on the planet. It was always like, oh no, you got Madsen again, Quentin, what's with you and Madsen? You always got him in your movies, In actuality, before I forget, worth saying, he actually went to Quentin after the movie was finished and asked him to cut out the torture scene of the movie. Yeah, it's a fact.
It's wild.
He said, Quentin, this movie's great. We love you. But you got to get rid of that scene with Madsen when he's cutting off the ear. Because you're going to lose the female audience of the movie. And it's just not going to fly. It's not going to work. And damn it, you know what? Quentin never even told me that had happened. He wasn't going to break my heart. He wasn't going to undermine me. If that picture had come out without that,
it'd be so different.
It would be very different. But he stood up for me. He said, no, this is what I wrote, and I'm keeping it in there, Harvey. He stood up against that level of a producer at that time to tell him that he wasn't going to do that. That's enormous strength and enormous confidence, right?
Yeah. You never did like the full acting school thing, did you?
I tried. I mean, I honestly did. I tried. I went to Steppenwolf Theater in Chicago, and I did a production of Mice and Men. Terry Kinney directed it. And I had met John Malkovich and Gary Sinise because I went to see a play that they did of Mice and Men. And I was so struck by Malkovich that I just was like, wow, what is that guy doing?
Is this when he had hair?
Yeah. And Gary, they were a basement theater company. Nobody ever even heard of them. And I got talked into doing a production of Mice and Men with them. There was a female involved in that situation. and in a good way. And I did it. I played Carlson. I was the guy who takes the dog out and shoots it. And that was the only stage production I've ever done. And after that, I tried to go to scene study classes, but I just didn't get it. I didn't understand that you have to pretend that there's a boiling cup of coffee. Oh, it's so hot. And I would say, why don't you just give me a goddamn hot cup of coffee?
It's exactly the sense that
sense to me.
The way Michael just explained the cup of coffee, that's exactly how I met Michael when we were doing the first movie together. That day that I hired him, like the half a day they gave me more. I wrote something at Cash Collector. It's something that I wrote myself. So I'm not the best writer ever. I got ideas. And he read it and he said, well, Dominique, I like the way you wrote this scene, but it's not going to work this way. Here's how we're going to do it. He told me flat out, here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to come here, I'm going to take the rifle, and da-da-da. And I said, you know what, Michael? I totally agree with you. I didn't write it properly, and I believe you, because when he changes something, he has the conviction that he knows that it's the way it should be done. And me as a writer and all that, and as the director of this small movie, I say, okay, this guy's brilliant, because not only understood what I wrote, but he corrected it on the spot without any rehearsal. He said, Dominique, this is not going to work, but I'll do it for you. Just film it. That was his word.
The best acting lesson I ever got was the dog in the Mice and Men.
Yeah.
Because when I was kind of bored and, oh, God, we're doing this again. Yeah. And listen, that fucking dog stinks and I'm going to kill it. And the dog would be conscious of me. The dog was aware, oh my God, this guy's going to do something to me. And I'd have to drag it from the set. I was on a rope. And it would plant its little feet. And I'd have to drag it, which made it even more upsetting that the damn dog didn't want to go with me. And when there was days when I was kind of bored and I just was done with it, and oh man, we had to do 2 on Saturdays. And by the second one, I was like, oh man, here we go again. I said, listen, that dog stinks. I have to do something about it. And he trucked right off with me. He would just go right off the stage with me. And I was like, oh my God. That was the best acting lesson that I ever had from anything. Wow. From a dog.
That's fascinating. I mean, the reason I brought it up is like, I wonder, because it's like a theme in this documentary almost. I think every person says that you have this like natural confidence or conviction in every performance. And I wonder if that's like part of what it put off Harvey Weinstein. I don't know. This confidence that you've got.
I don't know what it was.
And it's like, and it's all about this, and you say it, I think, in the doc. It's like a different persona of yourself. You're allowed, you choose to play like a different persona of yourself. Does that sound right?
I'm aware of a lot of different ways to think about stuff, right? I can get any situation you can look at in 5 different ways. There's 5 different ways to say something. You can be very fucking aggressive, God damn it. Or, I can be very aggressive, Or, oh, I'm so aggressive. Oh my God. I can be really aggressive. It's hysterical. There's a lot of different ways you can say things and do things. I've seen and met a lot of characters in my life, and I picked up different things from different people that I carry with me. So mentally, I know the habits of a lot of different kind of people. If I have to play somebody, I usually know exactly what that person is about. It's not mysterious to me at all. And so, but it's kind of insanity in a way. I mean, it can goof up your personal life terribly, because you can become too aware of people around you. I think Harvey just didn't like me because he just didn't. I never really saw him like anybody. I was actually standing with Quentin one time at Cannes in the south of France. And we were getting ready to do Hateful Eight. And Harvey was very upset about a picture he had that didn't do well. And I was at the cocktail bar. I was at the Majestic with Quentin. And Harvey come around the corner. He was very sweaty and very annoyed and huffing. He comes over. And I was standing there with Quentin. And he goes, what's going on over here? What are you doing with him? And Quentin said, no, Harvey. Michael's going to do Hateful Eight with us. So, everything's cool. And he looked at me like in shock. He looked at Quentin and goes, what is it with him? What is it with Madsen? Anyway, well, what is it? And Quentin goes, Harvey, I think he's going to be good in the film. And he goes, off. He just turned around and huffed away. So I don't know. But, thank God Quentin stuck to his opinions about me, I guess.
There is a part in A Dog that I liked a lot. It's not the interview with Quentin, it's the one with Roger Donaldson.
Yeah.
And he said something really cool. Also Roger Donaldson, by the way, Mr. Donaldson. Again, sorry, I'm using first name. I'm nobody to use first names yet.
Anyway, you're fine, buddy. You're fine. You're at this table. You're fine.
Anyway, Roger Donaldson, a great person. We spent about 2 hours at his house too, and because he did the getaway with him, and he said, I think it was off camera or something, and I totally agree with what he said. He said, there's Michael's presence. Michael's presence. You don't have to do a lot of pre-work with his presence. You just have to canalize it and put it in, and then you ride with it. And Michael did the Getaway. I mean, that's exactly that. He's playing, what was the name of the character in the Getaway?
Rudy.
He's playing that character. Honestly, it worked like a charm. But again, the reason why it works, it's because he's got that very strong presence, that voice, the voice. Roger said you have the best voice in the business.
I was actually trying to imitate Al Lettieri because Al Lettieri was Rudy in the original Getaway in the McQueen picture.
Yeah.
And he was so dynamic. And it really did seem like Steve was worried about him. Not too many people on the screen are going to threaten Steve's presence in the character in the movie. He looked genuinely worried about Al Lettieri. Al had that amazingly big macho kind of, he's Sollozzo in The Godfather. I mean, that's the same guy.
Yeah.
And he was so vicious in The Getaway that I was astounded. And when I got a chance to do the remake, obviously I wanted to play Doc McCoy, but that was too late for that. That was going to be Alec's job. But I wanted to imitate Al Lettieri. I wanted to be as convincing as he was. So I had to really find this benevolence in me. But Al had a weird sense of humor too. And so I thought it was fun to kind of goof around with that. But, Roger, is one of those other guys who, he gets me. And it's halfway through the movie, I go, Roger, you know what? I'm tired of playing bad guys. Why am I always the killer? Why do I always have to get killed? Man, he's, well, Michael, what do you want? What would you like to do, mate? Well, I want to be the goddamn hero, man. All right, mate. Yeah, okay. And see, give me the lead in Species, for God's sakes.
Oh, great film. Great film.
See, so those two movies with Roger were wonderfully amazing.
You know what he just said? He said, he gets me. Yeah. That's exactly the point. Some directors, brilliant. They all, listen, everybody works in Hollywood at that level is all brilliant. I'm not going to say one better than the other. But certain ones who have talent like Michael, they actually know how to use him.
Okay, so how did you choose to end this?
Okay, it's a really good question because that's actually not the ending that I originally chose. Part of the ending was the house burning down and then him rebuilding, because that's what great people do. They face challenges and they rebuild. So I had the house part burning down, and then I wanted to show the award that he won right after in Monte Carlo, and then would roll credit there. But then I tested the piece, that edit, with a friend of mine. He owns a Slam Dance Film Festival, Peter Baxter. And me and Peter looked at it and he said, it's great, but I think the ending is a little bit too dark. They may not catch what you're trying to do here. It may be to, try to make a little more happy ending, like with the statue was not enough that he won the prize. So I say, at good point. I don't want to finish this documentary on a bad note. The house burned down and that's it. So I said, okay, well, again, that's where you have flexibility in filmmaking. You understand? If I was doing a big project, you couldn't move an inch from whatever's on the paper. With this thing, I could move and make decisions because I had the luxury of doing that. So I contacted Mario Casar, which is also part of the documentary, and I say, Mario, I may need you for a scene with Michael. I have a different kind of ending that I wanted to add to the film, a more kind of nicer ending, and I need a guy like you, you and him talking about film, and and I'll film it and see how it goes. And Mario say, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. So we drove to Michael, and then I didn't script anything. I just wanted the two of them being together and talk about a couple of things about movies and roll it out this way. And they start talking on a chair, like you see in the doc, and they talk about the black and white movie that he likes a lot, the guy shooting in a trunk.
Jimmy
Cagney right there, White Heat. They start talking about White Heat and all that. That was good. And then I was about to cut right there, and then I still had my camera, and suddenly the two of them walk into a bedroom, and they look at a scene of what was this? It's Italian.
It was Anthony Quinn.
Anthony Quinn. There's an Anthony Quinn scene there. And they both freeze on the screen, the two of them, looking at that. And I see them puzzled about the film. What did I do? I grabbed my camera back, I put it on a shoulder, and I filmed it. And they didn't even know I was filming. And they talk, oh, this guy. And I felt the passion of two genuine people who love films. Yeah. I say, wow, this is my ending. Let's end with the two of them discussing about this Anthony Quinn scene, and then they're gonna walk out. And then Michael walked out with him. I follow Mario and Michael walking out. And while they walked out, it was the same kind of walk that he had in Reservoir Dogs when he went to the trunk of the car when he was getting outside.
You filmed it that way.
So I filmed it.
I didn't realize what you were doing.
No, he didn't know. And I matched it. And then after that, we did a little point to the audience, and then we rolled the credit. And I think that was the perfect ending for the doc because it leaves you with happiness.
I just did that because I wanted you to stop.
Yeah, you want me to stop? Okay, I kept going. Yeah, it said, that's it, stop.
That's it,
stop,
man.
You're done. Too much, stop. But to Peter Baxter credit, he told me, listen, whatever you do, you got to make people leaving the theater in a happy moment. And he's right. I mean, he's a very experienced filmmaker too. And I keep telling him, hey, Peter, that was you pushed for that ending. You're the man. Because I followed your advice and it worked out. So you have to be flexible and put your ego down as a filmmaker, because bigger people that have done more things than you, they will see something and you'll have to take it in consideration.
So I met Michael I think after you'd already shot this documentary. The fire had already happened and you were at the new spot, and I feel like he's lived a whole nother life since then.
Yeah, kind of have, yeah.
God. Is this documentary ongoing, or what was happening? Because I know if it's not, then this podcast is a place for all this stuff to live. There's a lot of stories there, Michael, already.
There's a tremendous amount. I just noticed that you have, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn on your arm as a tattoo. And all the time I've known you, I just now noticed that.
Yeah.
And it's very funny because I was just watching a thing about Clark Gable, and they were saying how much that one line changed the entire mood of the whole movie. And it's true. It's true. I don't know if you want to keep this in, what I'm about to say, but I'm also not drinking anymore. And that is tremendous, has a tremendous effect on my life. I mean, I was really, I had drank a lot of alcohol for a long time.
Yeah.
I needed it just to get through the day. It was that bad. Since I stopped that, my whole life has completely gotten better and changed for the good. But the fact that we're sitting here talking about the documentary is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And if I was still drinking, I probably wouldn't think it was a wonderful thing at all. Because that's what it does to you. It ruins your head. My biggest thing, I think that I even said it in the documentary at one point, you know that you got a big problem if you come home and you don't want to pet the dog.
You do say this in the documentary, yeah.
And that's when the first time I ever really got me really badly because we had a big German Shepherd. I had my other puppy that I took from Romania, and he used to sleep underneath the pool table, and I started to ignore him. I brought that dog from Romania, and he was the most loyal animal pet that I ever had. And I just started to ignore him, and I'd see him sleep under the pool table, and I didn't give a shit. And I knew there was something really wrong with me, and I had to stop. I really did, and I'm glad that I did, and it's made a huge, tremendous difference in my life. There isn't more chapters, and that's because I'm sober now, and I honestly don't think there would be if I had continued on with that.
Are you comfortable talking about why?
Sure.
How did you get from not sober to sober?
Well, if you let enough people down over a long period of time, and you don't have a conscience about it, then what kind of a man are you? You're nothing but a nothing. I can't live with that, of letting people down and knowing that I let them down. It was hard to live with it. And of course, then as soon as you stop, your mind has a funny trick of going back and asking you why you ever did it to begin with. And I think that I answered that question really well, that, when you're a little boy and you're growing up and your mother and father put you in a situation where this is our home, and your friends are your friends in the neighborhood. Your friends are your friends at school, and your mom and dad are together and they love you, and it's Christmas and all these things. But then when the family blows apart and you're 10 years old, you suddenly say, wow, well, I guess this really isn't our home. And the whole idea of home doesn't really exist. It's a fucking joke. It's like being convinced that there's a Santa Claus when there isn't. And you feel tricked. I felt tricked. Why did you trick me into believing in Santa Claus and that motherfucker doesn't even exist? And I was then, at 10 years old, I was thinking that stuff. All my best friends, well, I guess they really weren't my best friends because we were going to move away. And I never see any of them again. And what am I going to do with that? I'm 10 years old. I can't get back here. How am I going to do that? I have no way to come back to my old neighborhood. I did years later, but, all these things will undermine you. You get these ideas planted in your brain when you're small and young, of family and home and work. And my dad is a fireman, and my mom loves me, and she reads books to me, and all of a sudden it's over. And you feel really, really defeated and really lost and fucking alone. And you can either turn into a raving idiot or a narcissistic freak, or you can get hooked on alcohol and drugs. Alcohol for me was an escape. I didn't have to think about shit that bothered me when I was loaded. And, it worked. It worked an awful long time for a lot of stuff. But then when you start to realize how much damage you're doing, if you don't have a conscience at some point, you might as well just forget it. I mean, there's no point in living at that point.
Yeah.
Sam Peckinpah was a good drinker, I heard. But, that was a different generation and a different time.
Yeah.
So was Bobby Mitchum and Lee Marvin. Oh, great. Sure. Guys I looked up to tremendously. So, in fact, Robert Mitchum, when I met Mitchum, he was ignoring me. He was eating waffles and strawberries.
Okay.
And I really wanted to meet him so bad. And I sat down across from him, and he didn't even look up at me. I said, okay, fuck, man. He's not going to say anything. And so I started to get up, and all of a sudden I hear that voice, "What are you going to do with yourself, young man?" And I said, oh, my God, he spoke to me, and he looked at me, put his fork down. He looked at me. "What are you going to do with yourself, young man?" And like a fool, I said, well, I was kind of thinking about maybe an acting career. And he looks at me and he goes, "Why?"
What did you say?
I didn't know what to say. I was completely gone. But the next day, he was getting off an elevator. And I was in the lobby, walking around. My sister was over there.
Why were you at the same hotel?
My sister was doing the Hearst and Davies affair with him. He was William Randolph Hearst. My sister was playing Marion Davies. And the only reason I flew over there to visit my sister was because I wanted to meet Bob. Okay? And he sees me, and he goes, hey, and I go, hey, oh, you know that acting thing you're talking about? And I go, yeah. And he goes, well, remember 2 things, young man. And I go, what's that? He goes, learn to enjoy a good vodka. And I said, wow, really? And he goes, yeah, Smirnoff. And he even told me a label. I said, Smirnoff, huh? Yes. And I went, wow. And he goes, oh, forget about the exercise business, working out. No. Just get a padded coat. And it was the damnedest thing to say to somebody who was 13 years old at the time. A padded coat and Smirnoff. And boy, did I do it. I started drinking Smirnoff like it was going out of style. Wow. I was buying padded jackets and padded pants and padded shoes. Wow. And I was Mitchum, man, you know?
Yeah.
But little did I know, you know, the alcohol, you know, it sooner or later catches up to you. Even Sam Peckinpah said, all I want to do is enter my house justified. And I always took that as so seriously. And when you want to get sober, that's what you think. Well, you know, yeah, I want to enter my house justified. I don't want anybody to think I don't belong there. I don't deserve to be there. And when you're hammered all the time, you just don't give a shit. And the worst thing of all was when I lost my son. One of my sons. I've been blessed with a few boys, and my son was a soldier, and he didn't want to be a soldier anymore. It got the better of him. And that sent me on a worse ticket than I had been on with the alcohol and painkillers.
That's right. You told me.
I'm all busted up from stunts, too many stunts in movies, jumping out of cars and motorcycles and horses and everything. And, you know, you get addicted to painkillers. And then once you start taking the damn things and mix them with alcohol, it's very euphoric. And you really forget about everything. And you're just super fine. You think, hey, I'm great, right? It turned into a dead end.
Yeah. How many years of that with the painkillers?
10, 15 years, sure. I couldn't wake up in the morning without a bottle. I had it next to the bed on the floor. Wow. I'd have half a bottle of vodka before breakfast. And then during the day, I'd drink wine with painkillers. And at night, I'd go with the tequila. Wow. And it's a vicious, vicious, vicious circle. But it turns into something where you have to get it. You know, the getting of the product. That means you got to go to the store.
Yeah.
You got to walk in there. Everybody recognizes you. Yeah. They know what you're there for.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're just an open wound. It's so obvious that you are in there for that because you got to have it.
Yeah.
And you make friends with people in liquor stores, right? You all become buddies. Hey, Michael. Hey, Mick, what's up there? Hey, we got something new you might like today. Hey, it's already on the counter, you know? Oh, Jesus. Hey, thanks. You know what? I owe you guys some money. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of you. Don't worry. Or you get it delivered to the house.
Yeah.
There's always that moment in time where you have to get the product, you see. You got to call your pill dealer. Hey, man, I'm out of Norcos, goddammit. Then, where are we going to meet? How much is it? What time will you be here? You know, it becomes this horrible thing that you got to keep preparing and making situations where you can get the shit. And then once you feel bad about it, you got to hide it.
Why? Who were you hiding it from?
My family.
Yeah.
You know, I'd go in the garage and I'd drink myself into a drunken stupor in the garage because I thought they didn't know if they didn't see me doing it.
Even with that bottle on the side of the bed?
Well, no, I was pretty good about stuff like that.
Okay.
You know, I would be beside the bed when nobody was home, you know, or it would be somewhere else out of sight until I was by myself. And the pill thing, you know, then you have to hide them. And then you know somebody who knows that you need them, which is really creepy. That guy that I get them from knows that I need them. And you don't want anybody to know that about you, see? It becomes very insidious and really badly a hiding sort of thing. I felt guilty. I was not proud of myself. I was ashamed about the whole goddamn thing. I had to stop, man. I just had to stop because it turned me into a very unhappy, aggressive person. Yeah. Even when you and I started out with the podcast thing, I was, in the beginning of that, I was loaded when you would come over.
I could smell it on you once, but I remember the big one was last time I saw you. We were supposed to record at 10 a.m. I had a meeting in Santa Monica or something like that, and I called you and let you know I'm gonna be like an hour late. No response. I get to your house, and doors usually like kind of cracked open. It wasn't. And I'm like trying to like look in and knock and nothing. And then I saw you walking around and you open the door and you're like, Ryan, we got to go. Do you have a car? We got to get out of here. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I can only imagine I probably wanted you to take me to a liquor store, right?
So yeah, so here's what happened. The first thing is, you're like, where's your car? I'm like, it's on the street. He's like, pull it up. I'm like, okay, I have no idea what the fuck we're about to do. I'm like, I pull up the car, you walk in, you're like, just let's go this way. You wanted a hotel.
Of course.
And I'm like, I don't know where a hotel is. I'm from East Hollywood. I don't know, and you're like, just go this way. And they're like, and then we were passing a liquor store and you're like, pull in here. I'm like, all right. And you pulled in. All right, pulled in.
God.
You stepped out. You walked to the liquor store. I stayed in the car. You came back with 2 bottles of wine. You open it. You just start drinking it.
Only 2.
Yeah, 2
sure.
In the car.
I got twist off cap, man.
Yeah, twist off cap. You open one up. You just start drinking it in the car. I'm driving down the one looking for a hotel. I pull up. You're like, here, there's one here. I pull up and I asked if they had a room and they said no. And then I called a bunch up the coast. None of them had vacancy. I eventually found you a spot in Santa Monica.
I don't even remember that.
And I had to walk you up to the room.
That's another thing with drinking is the blackouts, man.
I have a story like that too during the shoot.
No, sure. I'm sure they do, man. Thank God I don't remember.
It's actually kind of similar to when we went to film. We had a segment in the doc where Michael was supposed to go by the Dennis Hopper star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which was a great moment. We did shoot that scene. We didn't use it in the doc because we'll talk about that maybe later if you want to. We have a lot of extra footage we haven't used, but a lot of it. But we take him. He didn't want to come back to Malibu that night. He said, "Hey, Dominique, we're gonna shoot the next morning. Why don't you get me a room in Hollywood?" So we got a room in Hollywood, and the morning was pretty tough, but we managed to deal with it. But I relate a lot to that because my own mother was an alcoholic. I mean, was drinking a lot. She died a few years ago, but I do remember that. I would come home from school sometime and I would see a bunch of hidden bottles.
Yeah, boy, they're hidden everywhere.
Crazy thing is, we had a little display with liquors at the house, and then when she would drink a bottle, she would actually replace the liquid with a similar color. That way you don't tell that. Then you would think that she didn't drink it because it's full. These liquors were for guests. You have a little bar when you have guests coming. Would you like to drink this? So when I was a kid, I kind of learned all the alcohol, JB and this and that, Johnny Walker. I was putting that in a little bar. I didn't know it wasn't for the guest. I didn't know it was for her. I thought it was for the guest. And she kept refilling the liquid with water. And when it was vodka, it was water. It was Johnny Walker. She would put some tea and it would be the same color.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and at the end I said, what the heck? And I realized she was drinking those bottles.
I mean, I just remember that day after I left you in the hotel room, and this is like noon,
oh, sure.
I could tell that you were hurting. So it's really good. It made me feel very good when you called me and said I'm getting help. And that was huge.
I did. I went to Passages and I spent a couple months over there, and I didn't work out right away. I wasn't completely ready, but eventually, I stayed there long enough to I went through the detox stage in the hospital because I had ended up in the hospital again. And thank God I went to the detox in the hospital, because if you're going through detox, the thing about that is, you know that a couple of drinks will make the bad sickness go away immediately.
Yeah.
And it's so hard not to do that, because you feel so sick and so awful. All I got to do is bang a few shots and I'm going to be fine. But if you're in the hospital, I didn't have that option, see? So I had to get over it in the hospital. And then finally, out of there, I went straight to Passages.
How many days is that detox part? That
would took me about 10 days, 15 days almost to get completely done, to have it all out of my system. And then I went over there and I checked in. Now, at Passages, I'm an addiction counselor.
I know, you told me.
I go there every Wednesday night.
Do you like it? How is it?
I get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
I never want to go, and then after I'm done, I feel really glad that I did. There'd be about 10 people in there usually. And I can look around the room and I go, man. And it's where I was. And so I know exactly what their experience is over there, because I did it, right? So when I'm looking at them, I can say, well, that guy right there is never going to make it. That girl right there, she's never going to make it. But that one might, this one can, and that one's going to be
and
all
you
right.
can just tell because of...
Just, it's an attitude. It's a vibe. It's an energy.
Yeah.
And I just ramble on and on and on, and then I let them say whatever they want. And in the end of it, they're all hugging me. And Michael, and you go, oh, Jesus, wow. This is kind of a privilege. I mean, this is a wonderful thing. And it's also, it keeps me balanced in a weird way.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I can't, can you imagine? I mean, imagine I did a movie before Christmas time.
Yeah.
And I played a guy who was a gambling anonymous counselor.
Okay.
And I had to do scenes where I was counseling people about gambling. I'm a gambling addiction counselor.
Yeah.
But I was also a bookie. And so when I was not in the school with the addicts, I was taking bets, right? And there's at one point in the movie, I actually say, there are those of you in here who probably never going to get over your problems. But, if you can't get over them and you just can't stop yourself, give me a call, because I'll place a bet for you. The duality of that wasn't lost on me, you see. Yeah. It's a very, very bizarre end up for me to do that. But I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, I feel like maybe you can even speak on this more, but he just feels like he's more present to me.
No doubt about it, sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Can you imagine? Yeah. Michael knows what time it is. He even knows what day of week it is. My God.
But let's also be honest here. During, except that's one time, maybe only one time, during this process of this documentary, he was always on and with the energy and the desire and everything to do it. And I remember the first day we started, I mean, I couldn't believe it. He told me, hey, you're going to Charlie Sheen, and then you're going to Dean Stanton right after. And then you go to my sister, and then you're going to go to this and that. And I say, wow, this is fantastic, because we both had the same enthusiasm about it. So yeah, the drinking possibly was there in and there, and sometimes we didn't film for a few times or a few months, but every time except maybe only once out of this entire process, we had a slight issue at the Dennis Hopper Hollywood Star, and that was it. The rest was like perfect.
I've probably tricked you a lot of times.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, even if you tricked me, it's still the quality was there. So
I was good at functioning. Like
you functioned perfectly and everything. Even when we redid the interview at your house, sometimes there were some missing things, and I call you and say, hey, can I come for an hour? Like you do your podcast. I'm having holes in the timelines, and I needed to know more about this. And he said, come over, and then for 2 hours we would redo the interviews, and
I sleep now, and I don't wake up sick. Okay, that's a real drag, man. The whole thing.
It's an important change, absolutely.
Oh, man, how many ambulances I've laid in the back of ambulances.
Yeah, Diana said it on the dog. She said I think we don't have that take. We didn't use that part, but she said on the interview that you kind of got used to a lot of ambulances.
You know, that's another one of those fucking things that I go back and think about.
Yeah, the ambulances.
When I was a little boy, I had asthma, okay, really badly, when I was just 4 or 5 years old. And they would put me in the hospital in the oxygen tent, right? And so I'm in this fucking tent, plastic thing. My mom had to put her arms through things that would cover her arms.
Oh, wow.
They had little gloves on the end. So she would reach in with the plastic gloving arms and that's how she would cuddle me or hold me. You know, and it was freaking me out.
Wow.
And then she would have to leave and I would go crazy. I'd try to break out of it and get out of it. It was insane. But after my mom was gone, there was always nurses who were very kind and very affectionate and very looked after a little boy in the hospital. I think there's something to that. You know, I think
Interesting, yeah.
my attraction or my strange desires to end up in a hospital because I'd get there in ambulance, but then I would remember, you know, because I was taken care of when I was
Some
there.
kind of comfort in that space.
Yeah, I found the hospitals to be really comforting after a while. You
So
know,
maybe that was a good place for the detox, huh? You know, maybe that.
oh God, oh man, I had so much. A doctor told me, he said, "Michael, I cannot believe you're sitting here talking to me."
Really?
Well, what do you mean about that? He said, "You know, your alcohol level is higher than I've ever seen in any person in 30 years of medical practice. Because you can't possibly be alive right now." And I'm like, well, I guess I am. You know, that's disturbing when you hear something like that, right?
Yeah.
Well, God wants you around,
Yes.
Michael. It's his decision.
You ever read The Desiderata?
No.
You should look it up. Look up The Desiderata. It's a tremendous.
Well, it's a book?
No, it's
Desert-
it's like a speech. It's like it's an explanation of what the best way to think about stuff. It's tattooed across the top of my back.
Oh,
I got that in jail, by the way,
okay.
which is really weird place to have the Desiderata tattooed on you. Okay, but yeah. Nobody knows who actually originally wrote it. It's apparently an anonymous scroll that someone found in a Buddhist temple somewhere, supposedly. It's a philosophy of life that's really compelling and really means a lot of sense to me.
Oh, I'd like to read it. Okay.
It's super cool. Yeah.
Anything else we want to add before we end this?
You end it.
All right,
You're the good guy. Yes.
I will,
got good ideas for endings.
I will end the podcast. First of all, thank you so much for doing it. I always love to share things that we went through during this great process. I think this documentary changed a lot in my own life as well. Let's face it too, knowing Michael, meeting with Michael and his experience and his trust in me for doing the process, I've learned a lot. Even at my age, I can still say there's always more learning to do. It was a great experience. It was most importantly a great honor to do. And let's see where this doc will be, which home this doc will find, and have the audience all over the world enjoying it. Oh yeah, we forgot, that was pretty cool. We won the best documentary feature at Mammoth Film Festival.
Yeah. That was for you that day, by
Well,
the way.
me and you.
I walk up there and they give me the damn thing.
Yeah.
I handed it to you because
It was a great honor to win an award. You know, it always shows that there's quality in what you do. And it was a great time, even with that big storm that went through. I mean, Tanner organized the festival with Alex and all those great people I met at the festival.
there was 25 feet of snow there, man.
Yeah, 25 feet of snow, and they pulled it through. They organized it so well. It was so fun.
It was pretty cool,
such a fun weekend. And when I came back with a trophy, I said, man, this cannot last forever in my mind. Being with Michael Madsen at a film festival, on the red carpet and win the award. I mean, how cannot be better than that?
It's
So
immortality, man.
yeah, that was fantastic. So now hopefully we'll, working on multiple outlets and people can enjoy this piece and learn from it, because filmmaking is, especially documentaries, is a lot of it, it's learning from them. So
there's only 3 good ones in the history of documentary. Ayrton Senna, a documentary of Ayrton Senna, the Formula One driver. It's titled Senna. And
yeah,
the one that they did about Amy Winehouse.
Amy. Yep.
And American Badass.
Yeah. Well, the first 2 that he
That's
mentioned, the first 2 that he mentioned won the Oscar. So I'm happy to hear him saying that. That's pretty cool.